Hey, get your hands out of your pocket. Get your hands out of your pocket. Get your hands. Get back. Get back.
It's hard when you find out all your troubles are real. I couldn't even play guitar for nearly a year after that. And I don't play like I used to. For 2 or 3 weeks, I couldn't even go in the music room. His drum set was all set up just like he had just been playing on it, you know. When he was in band and he was in percussion, I mean, it was tap, 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 all day long, all night long.
He was there until he was completely non-responsive. He was gone. Graham was really out of his head, and they said, well, he's assaulted an officer and he resisted arrest. Well, he did bite an officer.
When you try to get information from the police, what happened?
They clamped down.
What a shock. I thought a parent would have a right to records to see what the truth was. It's all captured on video. To say that you don't have a right to that is just crazy.
We're gonna go. We're gonna go.
Law enforcement agencies could withhold information that they know would be damaging to the law enforcement agency or to a particular officer. Police agencies have the discretion to release information concerning closed cases. If the public can't see for themselves, the trust that the public has in law enforcement is diminished. It makes it more difficult for law enforcement to do their job.
Breaking news tonight out of downtown Austin, where police say a man who was arrested for shoplifting pulled out a gun in the back of a patrol car in a busy part of downtown.
escorting our prisoner to the jail.
As we were driving down there, I began to talk to him. I noticed that he was real fidgety in the back seat.
Well, anyway, you just told me he was suicidal.
I'll let the staff at the jail know so that they can treat you properly there. Then he said something about, I don't know if I'm going to make it to the jail.
Removed a pistol, it appears, from the back of his waistband, placed it towards his head while still handcuffed, was able to pull his hands around to the side.
I hear the racking of the slide on a semi-automatic pistol. And I stopped the vehicle, exited the vehicle, let people know what was going on.
One old lady's got a gun in his, he's in the back seat. He's got it to his head.
A few minutes later, I heard him pull the trigger.
Shots fired inside the car. Inside the car.
10-4, shots fired inside the vehicle.
CPR in progress.
Start EMS.
Yeah, start EMS. I can see in the reflection we've got blood.
The big question that we all have is, how did that suspect get a gun into the back of the patrol car?
Chief Manley says the entire ordeal was captured on video.
Precisely because someone died in custody, we would want to see what happened in that case. What are they hiding? This makes me wonder why I should trust what's going on when I can't look.
A young shoplifting suspect.
He was handcuffed
In the back of a patrol car with a gun.
19-year-old Zachary Anam shot himself in the head.
What you can see on video, he is able to pull his arms around the right side of his body to place his head in front of the muzzle of that weapon.
How did this all happen?
I'm very devastated. It's my only son who's gone. Really struggling. What can we do with our life?
My reason is very simple. It's just that I don't want a family to have to potentially see that. And how does that play against the needs of the community to get that specific piece of information?
If a person dies in police custody, they're never going to go through that court process.
In the majority of those cases, we're going to release the information. It will be decided on a case-by-case basis.
Can you step out for me real quick? I'm gonna f***ing shoot you!
And 9 for failure to appear. Money to go back fresh.
Parking garage right here.
I can assure you no one feels worse about what happened in the back of my patrol car than I did. It was my fault. I didn't do the search that I should have done. I can only imagine how the family must feel, and I'm sorry for that.
Chief Manley says that this was all captured on video.
Our philosophy is that we should put out all of the information that we can with a few caveats. And so if the legislature changes the law, and it sounds like we would be in a position where we would have to release them, and we're going to comply with the law.
My name is Kathy Dyer. I represent myself. I represent my deceased son, Graham Dyer.
All right, the chair lays out House Bill 3234 and recognizes Chairman Moody to explain his bill.
In other words, a case can be closed, but unless it was closed with a conviction and the information related to it never becomes public. That exception was created to protect innocent people from having their names dragged through the mud. For example, when false allegations are made and a decision is made not to prosecute, the accused may prefer to have as little information released about the investigation as possible. Unfortunately, that well-meaning law has led to some unintended consequences. The most obvious of those comes in situations where the person being investigated has died.
What we want is to be able to hold law enforcement accountable, let the public see what went on. The person is dead. They're not going on to trial. They're not going to end up in a conviction. This bill would close that loophole.
Stop or I will shoot you.
You are pathetic.
Stop.
You're pathetic.
Stop.
You're gonna shoot me if I don't stop.
Yes.
Is that what cops do?
Stop.
We're mostly just angry and want answers.
Think of the shocking murder of 5 Dallas police officers last year. The shooter was killed before he could be brought to justice, meaning the records related to what happened that night are now permanently exempt from disclosure. The public has a right to know what its government is up to, and sometimes that impacts people in a very personal way, as you're about to hear from some of these witnesses.
All right, the chair calls Kathy Dyer.
My husband and I traveled here today. We don't know a whole lot about House bills or the Texas law. They were investigating, but they did not come across anything to indicate that any officers had any wrongdoing in my son's death. We were told we couldn't bring any kind of civil action because we didn't have sufficient evidence.
I'm speechless. Your story is very sad to hear. I know it took a lot of effort for you and your family to come here today.
The bill got out of its committee that did not get up for a vote in the full House.
Behave your ass if you don't behave. My squad is not out! It don't matter, just grab.
Been to Beaver's Bend?
Jump towards the water.
We'd go up there and go swimming and jumping off the cliffs.
Just take off running.
Went from the greatest moment to be a parent, the highest mountaintop experience.
Go for it.
Plunged into this.
Cheeky.
Hey, get your hands out of your pocket. Get your hands out of your pocket. Get your hands. Get back. Get back. Get back. Get back.
The first officer tased him, and he went to the ground.
What's your name, brother? Ram Jai. Ram Edward Jai. What do you think, brother?
Where you on, man?
He was obviously in a delusional, drug-induced state when they rolled up.
No, not that. Look at his eyes, man. His freaking eyes are just freaking dilated like crazy.
Not in his right mind, for sure.
In there.
What is going on here? Motherfucking pay your ass and don't behave. I swear to God! Put your face down now!
They shoved him into the car, didn't restrain him. He was thrashing around in the back of the car.
He bite you? Yeah, he did. He bit you?
Yeah, that's why I punched him.
And they said, well, he's assaulted an officer and he resisted arrest. Well, none of that would have happened if they had just backed off and let him get medical treatment. The driver says, quit banging your head. Quit banging your head.
Quit banging your head.
Well, he didn't, and so the driver pulls over. They tased him over and over and over again.
I've got his feet.
Calm down.
Motherfucker, I'm gonna kill you. Oh, shit. You better chill out, you hear me?
They got back in their cars and drove back onto the station.
Let's go.
There was no reason for him to die. What happened to serve and protect? What happened to, we're here to help this young man that's in distress? To wonder where he would be at this point, you know, would he have gotten through his college, or would he be married with kids, or, you know, who knows what? You know, all that's lost. No family should have to go through the suffering of not knowing the details of how their child has passed.
Like we almost got a new mission in life to prevent something like this from happening again. He doesn't have a voice anymore. And we do. But now when I'm lonesome, well, I like to pretend that I'm getting my fill. hickory wood.
The Denied project started back in January of 2017 at this intersection here in downtown Austin.
We're transporting our prisoner to the jail.
When an Austin police officer suddenly stopped his patrol car in the middle of the road and got out.
One old lady's got a gun and he's in the back seat.
A teenage shoplifting suspect was in the back seat with a gun to his head.
Shots fired inside the car.
He shot and killed himself, and he left behind a lot of questions.
What you can see on video, he is able to pull his arms around the right side of his body.
The police chief told the community the arresting officer didn't properly search the suspect and missed a gun he had hidden under his waistband.
I can only imagine how the family must feel, and I'm sorry for that.
Well, we asked for proof and got 911 calls and radio dispatch communication and other records, but Austin police denied access to several videos from the arrest, the scene, and the shooting itself from a camera inside the car.
Our philosophy is that we should put out all of the information that we can, with a few caveats.
Sure, no one wants to see something so terrible as that, but to truly understand what led up to that moment, that is the absolute proof. Of course, there are upstanding police departments that aren't doing anything wrong in situations like this. Maybe that's the case with Austin police, but until you see that evidence, you'll never really know.
Because someone died in custody, we would want to see what happened in that case.
For a year, we dug into other cases and analyzed data to find out when someone dies in police custody, an agency often withholds the records.
Police agencies have the discretion to release information concerning closed cases.
It was something that was never intended by lawmakers, but it's happened for decades.
Chief Manley says that this was all captured on video.
Now, this isn't just a journalist's fight. It impacts families, and it can bring doubt to communities. Transparency leads to trust. And when people trust police, it makes officers' jobs easier, and in turn, makes your city safer. Online now, watch the episodes, then explore the cases featured in the series. See the evidence we obtained for yourself. Also, a breakdown of the law letting police keep details like this secret, and a closer look at how often Austin police use that law. And case quizzes, real cases where you weigh the facts and decide if police should have released the video. Plus, go inside the investigation as we take you to the scene that sparked our digging. And an interactive map exploring similar laws in other states. See how they stack up to Texas. For perspective on the Denied project, we turn to our Open Records Roundtable. Laura Prather joins us from the Freedom of Information Foundation of Texas. James Quintero is from the Texas Public Policy Foundation. One of the big issues from the Capitol that we've been investigating this week is the dead suspects exemption. This is the one that allows law enforcement agencies to withhold information in closed cases where a suspect has not gone through the court process. And that is really kind of an unintended consequence when the suspect has died in custody.
That's correct. So when the law enforcement exemption was passed, the purpose of it was to basically protect those people that were still going through the process and law enforcement while it was still investigating whether or not someone should be brought up on charges. Now, the way that the law is written, it says if it did not result in a deferred adjudication or a conviction, if the investigation did not result in one of those two things, then law enforcement has the discretion whether or not to disclose the information from the investigation, which means you have a whole lot of closed cases out there, many of which involve suspects that died in custody. And law enforcement is the decision maker as to whether that investigative material can be disclosed even though the investigation is closed, just because it did not result in deferred adjudication or a conviction.
Law enforcement has said that, you know, they want to make sure that the information that is in open cases doesn't get out there, but this law enforcement exemption is for closed cases.
Correct.
Why would police want to withhold something like that?
You know, we've been told different things. We've been told things like, you know, to protect the integrity of the process, but when circumstances come up where you have a suspect who has died in police custody, one would think that the law enforcement would want the public to be able to see what happened so that they could, again, trust their government that they're doing the right thing. And what we're finding is sometimes the information makes law enforcement look bad, and they're withholding it to keep that evidence from a family who might otherwise be able to bring charges against them.
The House committee that looked at this bill had unanimously voted it out, but it was too late in the session and lawmakers had other priorities. James, how do you make sure that open records legislation is a priority this next session?
Well, so for our part, the Texas Public Policy Foundation is going to use the interim to call attention to some of the opportunities to advance good government reform. And so what I mean is, for instance, here in Austin, I think we have somewhat of a small controversy involving the city of Austin and Amazon. So as most of us recognize, I think top officials in the city of Austin have put forward a bid using the Chamber of Commerce to Amazon. Now that's largely been done in the dark, and in fact, not only is the public not had an opportunity to see what all it may be on the hook for, but even city council members, Leslie Poole was in the paper last month actually talking about how she's grown frustrated with the situation and not being able to tell her constituents what all is in the plan. So instances like that, we're going to work to highlight over the interim to show what the importance of this issue is, and then also come up with some meaningful solutions so that instances like that are either mitigated or done away with. The taxpayer has every right to know what its government is potentially putting them on the hook for, and we hope to pass bipartisan legislation next session.
Both of your groups have helped form the Texas Sunshine Coalition. What are you guys hoping to accomplish with that ahead of the next legislative session?
I think the purpose behind the Texas Sunshine Coalition is to increase public awareness, to demonstrate that this is a broad-based bipartisan effort. We have entities that are from both sides of the aisle. We've got Center for Public Policy Priorities and Texas Public Policy Foundation. We've got the Freedom of Information Foundation of Texas, the Texas Association of Broadcasters, the ACLU. We have people from all sides coming together and crying out that transparency needs to be a priority this session. The lawmakers who have been supportive of our efforts also come from both sides of the aisle. And so our goal with the Sunshine Coalition is to just extend our outreach further and to publicize the issues more. We've created a website, txsunshine.org, where we're tracking various examples of problems so that the public can be better informed. And in this way, we're hoping that we'll get a leg up for the next session.
Thank you for being here, and thank you for all the work that both of you are doing.
Thank you.
Josh.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us here on Facebook Live. I'm Robert Hadlock, and I'm here with KXAN News Executive Producer Josh Hinkle. And we're talking about the investigative series Denied. You've seen stories here on Facebook, and now we want to talk more about the investigation and answer some of the questions that you've been asking us throughout this week. And Josh, let's start with the investigation. How did this all come together?
Well, back in January of 2017, there was the tragic event in downtown Austin where the young man, 19-year-old Zachary Anam, he shot and killed himself in the back of a police cruiser. He had been arrested for a shoplifting incident, and this investigation really started out as us trying to find out information about that case specifically. Mm-hmm. The city of Austin denied our records request when we were asking for video of not just the incident, what happened in the car and outside the car, but also video of the surveillance of how the search was done. How did he get a gun? You know, he had this gun on him. Somehow the officers missed it, and we wanted to find out more information about that. Like I said, the city denied our records request, and when I asked them why, they cited a specific state law. I started checking around and found out that this law is used by police because they have the discretion to use this law. Basically, if a suspect dies in police custody, and the case is closed, then they can choose to withhold whatever information in that case that police feel they need to. There are some concerns from some groups, some families, journalists, lawyers, that this law possibly is having some unintended consequences, and it could be used to possibly protect police officers or police agencies that might be doing wrong.
Has this law been used very often?
Well, that's the thing. The state, the Attorney General's office, that usually is the clearinghouse for these types of things, open records, they don't track how often law enforcement agencies are asking the Attorney General to weigh in on this. So you would have to go agency by agency. We do know in the city of Austin, Austin police have used this to deny requests a little over 70 times in the past decade.
Some people have suggested we're doing this story as a way to push an anti-police agenda. That is not the case.
Right. Clearly there are a lot of good officers out there and a lot of great police agencies. I mean, there's been so much praise for Austin police after the way that they handled the bombing investigation and trying to find the bomber recently. We've done plenty of good police stories, and this isn't necessarily a bad police story. Maybe the Austin Police Department is doing everything right. This is about the information and making things more transparent and making sure the public understands what the police are doing. There is the thought that if police are withholding information, the public can't see what's really going on. And we believe that with transparency comes trust. And if you have trust from the community, then that means that you might have a lot more lawful public. And that way it makes police easier to do their jobs.
And a lot of people on Facebook wonder why anyone would want to see a graphic video that's in this series.
Right. That's one of the big comments we've been getting on Facebook, and understandably it is something that no one really wants to see. The death of someone, especially, in this case, a suicide. There are a lot of cases like this. And, maybe the Austin Police Department, Police Chief Manley, he says that he wanted to make sure that the family didn't have to see something so graphic. That's understandable and respectful. There are other families out there that have been denied video. They wanted to see what happened because they just had so many questions about how their loved one died. So much to the point where if that information was to come out, that could help with a lawsuit or some type of disciplinary action against police officers. That's not the case with Austin Police, with this case specifically, but others that we highlight in the series, that certainly is.
A lot of people wondering, why is this even a law, and is it the case in other states as well?
This actually goes back to the mid-1990s. Before about 1996, most open records within a police department were public records. You could get pretty much anything. In 1996, there was a Texas Supreme Court ruling that was involved in the privacy of individuals. Let's say you were a person who got arrested. There might be video of you getting arrested, but then later you were cleared of the crime. You were not found guilty or you were innocent. You wouldn't want that out there because it might tarnish your reputation or the reputation of your loved one. So that's the reason that the law was put into effect in the first place. But then you have to think about a person who dies in police custody. The basis of the law is if someone doesn't go through the court process and they're convicted, then that means that the police can withhold the information. But someone who dies in police custody is never going to go through the court process. They're never going to be convicted. So the unintended consequence that we've heard about is that the police agency can just hold this, withhold this forever, essentially, if they choose to. But that's the thing about the law. It gives police discretion, so they can release information like this if they wanted to.
What's the likelihood we could see a change in the law in the next legislative session?
This actually was something that came up in the last legislative session last year. There was a big open records fight to try to make a lot of government documents more transparent, like there is, every session. This one specifically, it did have a bill that was, created for it, and it went to the committee. The committee that was looking at it voted unanimously in favor of tweaking that law to make it where if a person dies in police custody, that information should be releasable no matter what. Even though the bill made it out of the committee, it was so late in the session and there were so many other issues that lawmakers had as what they saw as priorities, it didn't make it to the House floor for a vote. But we have heard already since our series Denied has been on our website, deniedproof.com. That is something that's grabbing the attention of other lawmakers, and we've heard that there's some traction to possibly reintroduce something similar next session.
It's some powerful reporting, and Josh, thank you for answering our questions here tonight.